Hi, I'm Meredith, the voice bringing you the audiobook of The Wind in the Islands. I'm letting you know that The Wind in the Islands is brought to you by Glasgow, an art studio and farm in the Thousand Islands. Check them out at glasgow.com.
Welcome to another chapter of The Wind in the Islands by Scott Oderkirk. Chapter 2, Message in a Bottle.
The mole and the rat were sitting on the shore in front of the rat's place in a couple of Adirondack chairs discussing their agenda for the day. "Ratty," said the mole, "there's something floating in the river just out there."
"It looks like a bottle,"
said the rat. He slid quietly into the water and swam toward the bottle. Before long, the rat returned to shore with the bottle between his paws. The mole danced about on the shore and said, "What do you have? What do you have?"
"Why, it's just an old bottle, but there's a paper rolled up inside it,"
said the rat. "What are you waiting for? Open it up and let us see," said the mole impatiently. The rat pulled the cork from the bottle with his teeth and shook it upside down until the edge of the paper was sticking out. He pulled the paper from the bottle and unrolled it.
"It's a note. An invitation to the party at the Toads. And, Mole, we shall be attending."
The mole could hardly contain his excitement. "The Toad? Doesn't he live in a castle?"
"Why, yes," said the rat. "By the way, we call it Singer Castle. And the island is Dark Island. The Toad's father named it the Towers. Sometimes the Toad calls it that. His dad was part of the Singer Sewing Machine Company, and that is where both the Toad's money and the name came from."
The next several days were spent preparing themselves to attend the party. Clothes were collected and inspected for suitability for the occasion. Black tie as well as casual party clothes, swimsuits and hats were discussed and discarded until just the right items were packed and ready for the row out to the island. The mole was up and about even before the sun rose over the wild wood. He couldn't sleep due to his anticipation of the weekend-long party. The rat was a little more used to this type of thing, being a long-time friend of the Toad's, so he awoke at his normal time to find that the mole had prepared breakfast, packed the skiff, and cleaned the kitchen. "Come on, Ratty," said the mole. "We're going to be late."
"Mole," said
the rat,
"you really must contain yourself. We have hours and hours. If we get there early, the Toad will put us to work helping with the preparations, and I'm going there to enjoy myself."
The rat sat down to enjoy his breakfast and, though feeling a bit badly about it, took his time despite the mole's impatience. The trip out to the island went quickly as the friends talked, anticipating what events would comprise the weekend. The mole's paw was trailing in the calm water off the side of the skiff as the rat rowed, and the island loomed in the distance. "Who created this wonderful castle?" asked the mole. Rat began, putting on his tourist guide hat.
"The Toad's dad had it designed by Ernest Flagg,"
said the rat.
"After a castle in a novel. We could hear the noise of work for what seemed like forever, but it didn't bother us. The stone came from Oak Island, so the noise was all around the area. Mr. Remington, the famous artist, complained a bit, but being a gentleman, or maybe just happy to have it done with, sent a bouquet of flowers when it was finished. His island, Inglenook, which is just over there, is where he spends the summer painting and drawing. Watch out for that little white dog of his with the black eye. Some kind of terrier. Loves to bark and is very unpredictable."
The rat's speech was interrupted when they arrived at the dock. Noticing that the Toad had just arrived back himself, his motorboat's exhaust still gurgled at the dock. "Glad you're finally here, boys," exclaimed the Toad. "Hope my wake didn't upset you when I passed by."
"No bother,"
said the rat.
"This is a St. Lawrence skiff. It would take more than a small boat weight to affect it."
As the rat tied off to the dock, servants took over, grabbing the bags and luggage.
"Toad, I would like to introduce my friend, the mole,"
said the rat. "What a pleasure," said the Toad. "And I would like to introduce the mole to my home, the Towers." The three began heading up the walkway, which wound in a semicircle up the hill to the castle. The Toad pointed out many items of interest along the way until he led them in through the magnificent arch-topped wooden door into a large stone foyer. The mole glanced to his left and was shocked to see his own image recede into the distance of the infinity mirror too many times to count, getting smaller and smaller each time. "Ratty, Toad, take a look," he said. "There are a bunch of us." They all spent some time moving in front of the mirror and watching themselves do it. The Toad enjoyed the reactions. It never became old for him when he brought new guests into the castle to pose in front of the mirrors. "Let's join the rest of the guests," he said, and they followed him into the party. The two met many new friends as they went from group to group and introduced themselves. It was the beginning of the summer season in the islands, and everyone was happy to be done with winter and spring. They were invited to, quote, "stop by, chaps, if you're ever rowing past," many private islands of the other guests when they met them. The Rat knew most of them were just being polite, but a couple invitations seemed genuine, and the Rat stored them away in the back of his mind for the future. They were getting restless when someone mentioned tennis in the backyard. "Let's go try it," said the Mole. And they did. The two friends may have looked good in their tennis whites, but only when they posed with the rackets. As soon as they began playing, it got ugly. Rat was able to get a few balls over the net, but the Mole, when he did actually manage to hit the ball with the racket, sent balls flying in every direction other than back to the Rat. One of the errant shots found a home in a woman's giant flowered hat, and two more balls managed to sail completely over the north boathouse, ending up in the water. They did end up with two copies of a nice photograph of themselves posing near the net with the river and the castle in the background. Later, when they would gaze at this photograph at home, as often happens, they became better at the game with each retelling of the story of the party. The weekend was everything they had hoped for and more. Amazing types and amounts of food, feathery beds to get lost in, and many new friends with whom they shared laughter and conversation. They enjoyed being looked after by the servants, but both the Rat and the Mole were really simpler folks. They preferred toast and honey in the morning, rather than the tables filled with a smorgasbord of options for breakfast. Quietly sitting on the dock watching the sunset was their way, not boasting of business through swirls of cigar smoke. They stayed to the very end of the party, participated in every event, and thanked the Toad profusely before leaving. But then they were very content to get back to the small skiff and row themselves back home. The trip back was much like the trip out, the Mole sitting in the skiff dangling his paw in the water, while the Rat sang quietly and rowed them into Chippewa Bay. But the Mole was not missing. He was amazed at the way this river, the St. Lawrence River, the river, was changing his way of thinking.